Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Rundown, where we talk about 2A news and conservative views. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. But as we all know, I do not do this program by myself.
That's right. My name is Mike Piroworski, coming to you live from the East Coast, the coast with the most, from the co-host with the most here on The Rundown in Hurricane Central. We promise to bring you 2A news, conservative views. It's a great day to be with us. Thank you for joining us.
It is a phenomenal day. It is a phenomenal day. That's right. I've been doing some of my post-election analysis, and like I said, while I still believe that we did not get as big a red wave as we would have liked, you're starting to see, as Mike was talking about yesterday, the red floodwaters are rising.
Yeah, listen, took a look at some. The ones that I'm watching today, obviously, are the same ones as yesterday. The Senate race, we know what's going to happen in Georgia. We're watching what's going on in Nevada. I don't know why they're not declaring that one yet. 95% with a significant 3-4 point lead, as well as governor races around the country. But what's her name? Lauren Boebert. Last I checked, let me see again. I think they're at 95% counted. She's like 65 votes down. So that's a tight race there, and that's that's several thousand people voting. So we'll see how that one comes out. And then, of course, just in case anybody's tracking, all of the squad got reelected in their almost 100% Democrat districts.
Well, and in those particular cases, I believe those are assets to the Republican Party because every time they open their mouth, they push people towards the Republican Party. So
yeah, exactly.
Those are assets for us. But it's kind of interesting because you're starting to see now there are 5 significant congressional seats that are going to flip in that are in danger of flipping in the state of California. That could see the balance of the House could play a role in that. Even in the California legislature, we're looking at a number of seats that are going to wind up being flipped from Democrat to Republican. So we're actually the red wave is actually making its way into the state of California. Now, mind you, we already have overwhelmingly blue. So any change is a significant. Any change towards conservatism is a positive thing in the state of California.
Yep. Like I said, it's the red floodwaters rising, and the other update is Marjorie Taylor Greene won by a significant margin as well.
We also have Lake. Looks like she's ahead now in Arizona.
Yes, as well. And we had Governor Charlie Crist. Remember, former Governor Charlie Crist ran against Governor DeSantis here, Captain Florida. I don't know if you remember her, Craig. We interviewed her about a year and a half, 2 years ago. Anna Paulina Luna, an Air Force veteran, and she ran against Crist back then and lost. I think it was 2 years ago, might have been 4 years ago, and now she just won that seat that he vacated. So that one was flipped here in Florida.
Excellent. That is phenomenal to hear. Like I said, I think that part of what we got caught up in, and at least I can say I got caught up in, was the fact that, oh my God, we're gonna win big. And the fact is, we didn't win big, but we won. And by all indications, Republicans are going to take control of the House, as well as there's a good indication that at the very least we're going to have a shot at taking over the Senate. When you look at in particular the runoff that's going to take place in Georgia. All you do have to do is take out that libertarian who libertarians generally tend to lean Republican. Then you see a clear path towards a Herschel Walker victory there in Georgia, and thus a Republican majority in the Senate.
That's it. There you go.
So exciting times. But before we get into too much more post-election analysis, let's give a shout out to our sponsors.
Yeah, let's say hello to our good friends over at Hitman Industries. That's hitmanindustries.net, hitmanindustries.net. If you got yourself an AR in the past 5 years, probably got one of their barrels and don't even know it. And now you can buy from them direct and get yourself a new barrel for your new build, or put a new barrel in your old rifle. That's hitmanindustries.net. The California Republican Assembly, who did their job, right? We see the little bit of that red floodwaters rising out there in the state of California. So make sure you join our friends there at the California Republican Assembly. And then, of course, if you want some awesome combat gear, tactical gear, web gear kind of stuff, go to uscombatgear.com.
That's right, folks. These are the folks who bring us to you so that we can bring you to them. So do us a favor. Look in the links. Look in the links section or the description section of this program. There you'll find links to all of their websites. Visit them, and if you like what you see, spend some money with them and tell them that the guys over at The Rundown sent ya. Also, if you are watching this program, at least if you're watching it for the second, third, or more time, that must mean that you enjoy it. And if you do us a favor. Share us with your friends, right? Let them know that they can watch us wherever they watch videos, on YouTube, on Facebook. They can watch us on Rumble. They can watch us on OpsLens. They can watch us on Spotify. Or if they just want to listen to the program, maybe this is something that you'd like to partake of either on your way to or on your way home from work. You can listen to us wherever you find your podcasts. But check us out. But however you choose to partake, however you choose to share, please do share and partake.
Share and share alike.
Share and share alike. All right, let's look into post-election, everyone does kind of their post-election analysis, right? And usually in a midterm election, whoever is the party in power generally tends to take a few lumps. And what's interesting about this one is that while the Democratic Party did not take as many lumps as I think most were anticipating, we're actually starting to see something very odd coming out of the Democratic Party, and that is this, the fact that they feel like, we have a mandate. They've gone from skipping soul searching, as Axios said, because a lot of people were thinking, well, you know what, we need to rethink how we need to rethink the people who are leading our party, because having an octogenarian leading the House is not necessarily a good idea. Because if you look at it in the Democratic Party, all of their leadership are in their 70s and 80s. But maybe they're thinking it's time that we get some new young blood. Maybe we need to rethink how we run our campaigns, because all we talked about was abortion in January 6th, and voters seem to be, or at least according to all polls, said they were more interested in the economy, in crime, and what was going on at our southern border. Well, now, since they didn't lose as bad as they thought they were going to lose, they think, we're good. Not only do we not need soul searching, Mike, but they honestly believe that they have a mandate.
Again, Craig, they're so delusional. They think that they've won. They think that they have the mandate. They have yet to grasp what the public wants. We know that, like you said, from their obsession with abortion and the January 6th tourism event. It's absolutely ridiculous to think that these are people that are in charge. These are people that continue to get voted in by the blind because they have a D next to their name.
Yeah, it's funny because I think that this could turn out to be a real benefit to Republicans, and here's the reason why. That means that they are not going to change their tact. They are going to continue to do the things that they've been doing. Now, what I will say is this: I think that to a certain degree, their campaign strategy was correct. I think the focus on January 6th was off. But if you look at the exit polling, the change in or the issue of abortion, the abortion ruling did play a role in energizing some people on the left to show up to the polls and vote. The challenge is I don't see that same energy extending into the next presidential election.
No, I mean, listen, I think they're going to try this as early as next week, let alone the next presidential election. And then they're going to get the shush from the Republicans when they try to speak up. They're going to get ignored on committees. They're going to get ignored on the floor. Once they lose the majorities, they're going to be shunned and pushed away, because that's the same thing that the Democrats have done to Republicans the last 2 years. So it's they can have all the mandates they want. If they're not allowed to speak, they'll mean nothing.
Well, and I'm the other thing I think you're going to start to see is, instead of impeachments or presidential impeachments or / January 6th committee hearings, I think you're going to start to see some committee hearings about some of these things that we know need to be discussed. I think Hunter Biden is going to start to become an issue, and the role that his father played in his business dealings. I think that's going to start to become an issue of congressional hearings. I think you're also going to start to see a lot of the issues regarding, or questions being raised about Russian collusion and the investigation, and how basically you had the law enforcement arm of our federal government weaponized against the president's political enemies. I think you're going to start to see a lot of that revealed. And I think that's going to do a lot to sour folks on Democrats.
Yeah, listen, the Republican, House leadership and committee leadership has already written out and posted their goals if they took the House. And we know it's going to start right there. Hunter Biden is right at the top of the list. So you're going to see all of these things occur.
Right. But, once again, I think to a certain degree they are delusional. And and that, by the way, Mike, that leads me into our next story. Now, we all know that John Fetterman is less than an articulate individual. Prior to his stroke, he was already a hardcore leftist well, let me clarify. He wasn't just a hardcore leftist. He was a trust fund bum, right? He lived off his parents until he was in his 50s. And the only job he had ever had prior to becoming lieutenant governor was mayor of a town that had 2,100 people when he started. By the time he left office, they only had 1,700. But that's really the closest thing he had ever had to a full-time job. The guy who walks around wearing the hoodies and everything, yeah, dude, once again, lived off his parents almost all of his adult life. This is the same guy who barely showed when he did become lieutenant governor, barely showed up to work. And at the same time, the only time he did show up to work was to sit on the parole board, where he went out of his way to try and release violent criminals into the public, because, he wanted to see half the people in jail there released. But nonetheless, that doesn't stop the folks over at MSNBC from declaring that, this is MSNBC's Katie Tur, from suggesting that Fetterman could be a good candidate for president of the United States. Check it out.
Fetterman as a nominee at some point for president. I know there's some variables, obviously, but just a few. But I just, what he did in the super red, deep red parts of Pennsylvania, and the way that he ran ahead of Biden, as you were saying, ran ahead of Trump. I mean, it just makes you wonder about his future.
All right, Mike. Now I gotta ask. By the way, Fetterman did do. He ran ahead of Biden in red areas there of Pennsylvania. First, give me your analysis of the potential of John Fetterman as a presidential candidate, and then maybe talk just real briefly about why you think he did better in some areas than other Democrats amongst Republicans.
Sure. First, I want to point out, Craig, he was mayor in Braddock, Pennsylvania. Like you said, they went from 2,100 to 1,700 people while he was the mayor. All I'm saying is, don't look in his basement. Don't look in his basement.
Don't look in his basement.
No. I think he may have eaten most of them, but there's probably still some in the basement. This guy is. I mean, really. I mean, I guess when you're comparing him to the current president, he's got the same skill set, right? So might as well. He's not going to be any. Could he be any worse than what we have now? At least this guy's got a diagnosed medical reason, that he acts and performs the way he does, as opposed to we hide behind Biden's illness. this guy's a legitimate candidate, Craig. Absolutely not. No, I'd love to say there's not a chance, but he just got elected. Okay, as a senator, so of course there's a chance with idiots around the country. His he's asking for special treatment up there in the Senate as well. Like he can't have just verbal votes. He needs to see it in writing in order to comprehend it. So he's going to grind the process to a halt. And then what happens if he files a vote and then later says he filed it the wrong way? What happens then because he misunderstood what was going on? I think he tracked above Biden not because he was any better than Biden, but because Biden was much worse than everybody realized during the initial vote. So he's probably just a notch or two above where Biden is. It's not that he did better than Biden. It's just that Biden did worse than the norm.
Well, and I also think you have to consider who he was running against. I mean, this was the guy he was running against Dr. Oz, who had little to no real connection to Pennsylvania. It's basically a place he moved to so that he could run for the U.S. Senate. This was the guy who also had made a number of statements that not too long ago that were directly in contrast to hardcore conservative positions. And I think the challenge was people just weren't excited about Mehmet Oz, and I think that played a huge role in it. They were like, well, at least Fetterman was from Pennsylvania. So I don't know that he necessarily did well as much as I think people didn't show up as much for Mehmet Oz. And by the way, that just goes to, and I'm hoping that Republicans get away from the whole idea of this, star power, this support good candidates, not people just because they're not just because they're popular. That I think was the big mistake that they made there. And the other thing was that he made a verbal gaffe in the debate that quite frankly they played on at a time in which voters who were sensitive to the abortion issue, it was the exact wrong comment at the exact wrong time to say that local politicians are going to be making decisions. That just wasn't a good statement.
Yeah, and listen, speaking of the debate, I believe that that's probably one of the primary reasons that Fetterman got elected. The DNC and his party handlers made sure, and they put off doing that debate, and they tried not to do it, and then they finally decided to do it very late in the process.
Right.
By the time the debate had taken place, there'd already been, I think it was just over 300,000 absentee ballots filed. You don't think that would have made a difference of the people that voted? Like you say, Craig, that's why you wait to vote late.
Yes.
So those people could have seen, the moronic, presentation of this guy, on the TV. That clearly would have changed a lot of those votes.
I completely 100% agree. And, in some cases you had Democrats that decide not even to engage in debates because, yes. Once again, they figured in many cases they did not have to. I think any elected official who refuses to debate their opponent, they need to be checked, because that's someone who clearly is afraid that they're going to be exposed. And quite frankly, he was exposed. Fetterman was exposed. And the fact that Democrats think that he is capable of being president, I mean, here's what we have here. And this is the thing, and I understand dude had a stroke, okay? Before that, he was a bad candidate. But post-stroke, it's like this. It's like saying, you know what? It's like a guy who wants to be a fireman, right? And he gets into a car accident and he breaks his back, right? And so now he's in a wheelchair. And so we say, well, he was in a really bad accident and, he really wants to be a fireman. And so we should hire him anyway to be a fireman, despite the fact that he can't stand up and hold a hose, despite the fact that he can't drag a victim out of a fire. Despite the fact that his physical capabilities or mental capabilities preclude him from being able to do his actual job, we should still hire him to be a fireman. And that's what you got here, because the job of a senator is to not just to show up and vote, but to read and to analyze legislation, to be able to advocate for his constituents in the Senate, on the floor of the Senate, in committees, to know and ask questions. And quite frankly, he has demonstrated he's not capable of doing any of that.
Yeah, listen, he's the poster child for everybody gets a trophy, right? Can you imagine him on the Senate floor getting up to speak, and it's going to be absolutely, incomprehensible, and all the other Democrats are going to be like, "Oh, good for him, good for him."
Hello, good night.
Yeah.
I'll just leave that there for you. All right, one of the big ideas that the left had, or at least the president had, was debt forgiveness. In other words, they wanted to forgive student loan debt because, people were swimming in so much student loan debt because they took out loans that they had no idea how they were going to wind up repaying. But that's what happens when you wind up getting your degree in women's studies, Latinx or Chicano studies, sociology. I mean, you get all of these degrees where you can't really get a job. But then you wind up with, and by the way, you also wind up going and living in places that are far too expensive. But anyway, that having been said, a lot of student loan folks have been polled, and they've asked now that student loan forgiveness is right around the corner, they were asked, how are you going to spend? What are you going to do with the additional money that you are now going to have, since you're not going to be paying student loan debt, since the rest of us are going to be paying off your debt? What are you going to do with it? Well, according to Make It, or CNBC, of those polled, 73% of borrowers, all right, these are people who are going to be getting their loans forgiven, said they're going to spend more money on travel and dining out, meaning they're going to be eating out and they're going to be traveling. That's how they're going to spend that extra money because, Mike, they are so in debt. They are so drowning in debt that, they aren't able to go to their local restaurant or eat out or travel to, Hawaii or anything like that. So we need to make sure that, the rest of us pay for their trips and their meals.
Well, Craig, it's a combination, right, of the feeling of entitlement and no personal responsibilities whatsoever. These are the people, and I made a comment about this the other day when we were out. You got people that are out there whining and complaining they can't make the rent, can't make the car payment, but they're sitting across the table from you at dinner, right? And paying for meals and paying for drinks. And you're like, I don't even want to be here with you. I don't even want to be part of this, because I know the next step is you run them credit cards up and then you default on them. And my credit card rates go up because I got to pay for your defaults. These are people that have no idea how to take, personal responsibility for these kinds of issues. And they're everywhere, including all of Congress, right? All of the left side of Congress.
Well, what's interesting is that I was reading another article and they were talking about how credit card debt, personal debt and credit card debt has increased amongst Gen Zers something like 73%, meaning they have almost doubled since the pandemic, they have almost doubled their debt. And once again, that's not even including student loan debt. Which just goes to show you that, these folks they don't understand the concept of delayed gratification. They don't understand the concept of if you're going to take out debt, it ought to be, you need to have a plan to get out of that debt. I decided not to go to graduate school, not because I didn't want to, but because when I was younger, really didn't have the financial wherewithal and did not want to go $100,000, $200,000 in debt to do so. And as I've gotten older and I'm in a position where I could probably afford to go to graduate school, now I'm thinking, okay, what are my potential earnings with that degree, right? If I go and get that degree, how much more am I going to earn? In other words, am I going to earn more money than it costs me to get that degree? And the answer is no. It's not going to increase my earning that much. So therefore, fiscally, it's a bad decision. And I don't understand why we're not teaching young people this very basic skill. It's like, look, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense.
Yeah, these are the same people that, or the children of the same people that fell for the housing crisis, back 20 years ago. Remember, Craig, when everybody, listen, buy your house now, and we're going to give you low payments, and in 4 or 5 years, then they're going to balloon up. But you'll be good by then, right? You'll be able to get a good job. Oh, sure, I will. I'll get a good job. I'll be able to make payments for it. Have no concept of planning for the future and not engaging or entering into something that you can't currently afford.
Well, and that's what happened. Now, there were a lot of people who it got them into a house, and then they were able to refinance. They then turned around and they refinanced it in a couple of years into a fixed rate mortgage. I know because I was one of those folks. But I waited maybe 2 years before I decided to go ahead and do that. But the plan was always in place to be able to do that. And by the way, I didn't go and buy more house than I can afford. And that was a big thing that people did. A lot of people were like, well, they initially qualified for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. But if you get a variable rate mortgage, or if you get one with an interest only with a balloon payment in 5 years, you can now get into a 5-bedroom, 3-bath home. So you had a lot of people go and buy more home than they could actually afford, right? What my wife and I decided was we said, okay, well, we're going to get this smaller home because even if we wind up having to pay a larger payment at the maximum that loan is going to be, we can afford that payment, right? It makes absolutely no sense why people do some of the things well, it does make sense because quite frankly, most people are ignorant when it comes to fiscal or personal financial issues. And by the way, that also has to do with student loan debt. These are folks who quite frankly need to not just be, they need to be just paying off their student loan debt, but then they need to be paying off their other debt.
Yeah. And again, no concept of how to do that. No responsibility at all to manage their assets properly.
Well, exactly. I personally, I'm a big believer that we need to do more personal finance in high school. I think there needs to be a better understanding of debt. There needs a better understanding of credit and how that all works, and helping people develop some good personal financial skills, how to analyze whether or not spending money makes sense or not. But
yeah, you know, I had it. Listen, even as much as I despise them, even the NBA has that kind of classes they do for rookies when they come to the league. They must sit down and take this so they don't end up one of them fools that's completely bankrupt, but everybody he knows is now rich off of him. Exactly.
All right, moving on to our next story. Now, this was one that I think we all kind of knew, at least those of us in the Second Amendment community always kind of knew. But there is a new study out, and it's from Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership. We know the folks over there, Dr. John Adine, a very good friend of the program. There was a study that was recently done, and in this study they noted that they did analysis of both of state and national data, and it showed that more civilian gun ownership is not linked to to increased violent crime. Now, the trope of the left is, well, people are going and buying more guns, therefore, and they're doing that, and those guns are being used in crimes, right? And that's causing violent crime to go up. But in essence, what we're actually finding is because there is an increase in violent crime, people are going and buying more guns. So the link is actually reverse of what the anti-gunners would have you believe.
Yeah, and we know this, right? We know that what is it? Dr. John Lott wrote the book years ago, and many editions since, called "More Guns, Less Crime." And I always like to say we have the conversation. It's more guns in the hands of responsible gun owners equals less crime. And obviously he shortened the title for the book there, but that's it. You've got people that are out there illegally possessing firearms or illegally using firearms. And the only thing that will stop them, and I hate quoting the NRA, is the only thing that stops a bad guy with the gun is a good guy with the gun. And we know that from all the studies we've seen, including from DRGO and Dr. John Lott and all of those sources.
All right, so the study was done by Dr. Mark E. Hamill. No, this is not Luke Skywalker. This is Dr. Mark E. Hamill. He is a trauma surgeon from the University of Nebraska Medical Center there in Omaha. And once again, they specifically point out that there is, not only did they point out that there is no link between violent crime and civilian gun ownership, but that they even demonstrate that there is no link between laws that are passed, gun control laws, and any decrease in violent crime. And it's, by the way, that's not hard to see. In the state of California, gun restrictions have only increased, and yet violent crime has gone through the roof in this particular state. For 20 years, we saw violent crime going down, but that was largely a result of tough on crime legislation that was passed in the 90s all the way into the early 2000s. And then the 2010s, we started to see the move to decriminalize crime. And as thus we saw crime in general go up, but specifically violent crime.
Yeah, and it's all contributing factors, right? We know that it's the gun ownership, the responsible gun ownership is what's going to take you and reduce your chances of becoming a victim. And you're right, Craig. The decriminalizing of crimes is the reason we've had that reverse. There is no punishment, for these individuals that commit these crimes.
Exactly. All right, moving on to our parting shot. Now, this first one, because we're talking about crime, I just want everyone to understand we are not promoting a conspiracy about erection fraud. Okay, so we're not promoting that with this particular parting shot. But Jeffrey Epstein showing evidence that he voted.
There you go. Very nice. He voted. I like that he was also kind enough to get a mirror image of the sticker and put it on his chest, so it looks good when we read it.
There you go. I voted. No, we are not. That's called a parody. It's called a joke. YouTube.
There you go.
Just in case you're wondering, YouTube. Yeah, that's what we call a joke. Now, this is no joke. This one right here is absolutely, positively no joke. I don't think any meme could properly display this. These are his own words, folks. Let me read this to you. This is John Fetterman, and these are his own words and I actually heard the interview where he said this. He said, "I believe if my doctor believes that I'm fit to serve, and I believe that, again, my doctor, the real doctors that I believe, they all believe that I'm ready to serve, and that's what I believe is where I'm standing." Wow. That's those of you in Pennsylvania. That is the guy that is going to be your U.S. Senator. I am so looking forward to his speeches on the floor of the Senate.
Yeah, Craig, he talks about his real doctors there. Does he have a stash of fake doctors also that he uses?
Evidently he does.
Okay. All right. Okay.
All right, now our last parting shot, once again, goes to this whole idea of post-COVID amnesty and the fact that we all need to reconcile, because we were all mean to one another. Here it says, "Let's declare a pandemic amnesty." This is from Emily Oster. She wrote it from there at the Atlantic. It says, "We need to forgive one another for what we did and said when we were in the dark about COVID." Who are those guys, Mike?
That's Rick and Corey from Pawn Stars.
And what is it that they have to say about?
Rick says, "Best I can do is a military tribunal."
That is hilarious. Once again, folks, and that's just, they were in the dark about COVID because they only wanted to believe the things that the president and the White House and the things that the left were telling them. They ignored a lot of things that we now know to be true. In fact, they didn't just ignore them. They sought to silence people who would dare say things that were contrary to to the narrative. And once again, as we've said, we lost a YouTube channel over it. By the way, folks out there, look, we're still looking for a lawyer. If any of y'all out there are good lawyers, we would love to sue YouTube and not so much get our channel back, because we'd like to get the channel back, but to expose, what we know is the case. We know that they engaged in censorship, working with the government. We would love to be able to expose that. So if y'all know any lawyers, hit us up via DM. Just saying. Give a brother a call.
Look us up. Call us.
All right, it's about that time once again, Mr. Piwowarski. So let's give that shout out to our sponsors.
Yeah, let's say hey to our good friends at the Hitman Industries. That's hitmanindustries.net. You go over there, you get you a rifle or pistol caliber, rifle and pistol length barrels for your AR. Hitmanindustries.net. Then, of course, the California Republican Assembly, who did a great job this week. Thank you, California Republic Assembly. Continue to do good things. USCombatGear.com for all your field gear and web gear need. And Craig, tomorrow, I'm bringing another one to the table. Somebody that's offering us a nice discount if you want some holsters. So tomorrow you can go for a holster company.
Very, very nice. Very, very nice. Looking forward to we always love new sponsors. So, folks, by the way, if you're out there and you're interested in sponsoring the show, hit us up. We would love to add you to our list over here. Oh, folks who are doing quite well with the sponsorship of the rundown. So, would love to add you to the list. And on that note, we're going to call it a day. We very much appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program and encouraging your friends to do the same. We will be back tomorrow on Freedback Friday. Holla at you later.